Bandana Joe, warrior here at NWA Wrestling Revolution.
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to be a wrestler all my life. 5 years old, I had a birthday party. My piñata was Hulk Hogan. Birthday cake, the whole works. It wasn't until maybe 2007 I was attending Pan Am here in Edinburgh, and there was a group called Pro Wrestling Syndicate. It was supposed to be a club that people could go get together and basically just watch pro wrestling and talk about it. I saw a flyer one day, decided to miss work so I could attend a meeting, and I met a gentleman who goes by James Dante, and he was the one who started the group. I remember going, and he made sure to let everyone know that he wasn't going to be training anybody because he wasn't allowed to. Of course, you know, there were some things going on behind the scenes where they kind of wanted to start training people. But the first meeting that we had, they showed a match where it was Dante versus a gentleman known as Gravestone in a ladder match. And that was a local show, and to me that was, you know, I'd never heard of anything like that where local people were actually wrestling. They were just people just like me and you. And I was blown away by the match. After that, unfortunately, I couldn't make any more meetings because of work. I got in big trouble because of missing, and that pretty much died out pretty quick until I found Wrestling Revolution on MySpace. And I found it through the guy who trained me, goes by the name of Willie Stars. And I contacted Willie. He told me they'd be training at the gentleman's house and everything. And well, I started training with him, and training was going very well, very well. I would drive from Roma. Sometimes I couldn't even make it because I didn't have money for gas. I had to search through the couch, pennies, quarters, anything I could get just to make it a practice. But I made sure to be there, I remember on Mondays, every Monday. And after a few years of training, I met a guy who was wrestling under the name of Tiger King. He was wrestling at local lucha shows, and I became really good friends with him. And when I found out that he was actually, you know, posing pictures with titles and meeting all these lucha legends and this and that, I thought to myself, you know what, like I really got to get the ball rolling. And Tiger King eventually became known as JC Valentine, a great wrestler himself. And I want to say around 2010, I was attending a local show in Roma, my hometown, and while I was at the show, you know, the Rudos come out and they start talking crap to the crowd, saying this and that, and you know, at the time I was just a fan, so I basically, you know, started yelling back at him. So I was loud enough to get his attention to where he opens up the ropes and calls me into the ring. I was with a few friends, and I didn't want to look like a wuss, so I actually stood up and I walked into the ring, got in the guy's face, and I told him, I've been trained, I know how to work. What do you want to do? The guy looks at me, he looks confused, he's like, wait a minute, what? And I was bigger than the guy, the crowd was really into it. What happened was they ended up separating us, and I left. A few months go by, I was working at a restaurant in Rio Grande City, and this man comes up to me and he looks at me and he says, hey, are you a wrestler? And I said, no, I'm not a wrestler, I've trained before. And he said, well, I remember you from that one show in Roma. And I said, oh, months ago. He's like, yeah. He's like, I know the promoter. If I talk to him, I can get you in the show. I said, do it. So next thing I know, I get contacted by the promoter who wants to book me in the main event, wants to put me on the radio, wants to put me on TV, wants to put me on the newspaper. I ended up calling my trainer, Willie. He called a bunch of the Revolution guys, and we ended up having my debut match in my hometown of Roma. After that started, Wrestling Revolution was part of different shows. Wrestling Revolution did not have all of this yet. So we were working on it. It was a group of guys who were hungry for the success, hungry to entertain, and we were just busting our butts to get it. And I ended up telling Vermin one day, I said, hey man, what I want is that for us, 1 year from now, I want us to start having our own shows. I don't want to be opening up for, you know, lucha promoters. I don't want to be opening up for anybody else. I want the Wrestling Revolution to have its own thing. And he looks at me and he smiles. He said, yeah, we'll get it. We'll get it.
So that was how you became known as Bandana Joe, how you got that moniker.
A lot of people ask me, and for those who don't know, my name is Alvaro Riojas, and I wrestle as Bandana Joe. It's hard to say. The thing is, like, at the time when I was starting, I was watching a lot of independent wrestling, and there was a lot of independent wrestlers who I wanted to not necessarily mimic, but I wanted to, you know, I was inspired by them. One of the main ones being Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe being a big guy, heavy-set guy, jumping around the ring, light on his feet, is something that I could relate to. But I didn't want to steal his name. I remember one time watching the movie Goonies, and in the movie The Goonies, the older brother, played by Josh Brolin, he had a red bandana on his head at the beginning of the movie, and I remember thinking back, man, if I was in that movie and he was my older brother, I think he'd be the coolest guy ever. I'd want to be just like him. So at that time, I started wearing a red bandana on my head everywhere I went. When I was coming up with my name for my debut, the promoter asked me, what do you want to go by? I had no name. I remember going up to my trainer and asking him, hey, what do you think of the name Al, the locker room legend Votto? It's just my first name split in two, first and last name. And he says, you know what, like if you want to be a good guy, it's going to be kind of hard for the fans to make a sign that says Al, the locker room legend Votto. And you know, how are you going to put that on a t-shirt? Think about the marketing. So when I went to meet up with the promoter, I thought that was going to be my name. That was my mindset, is I'm going to be Al, the locker room legend Votto. So I go to the promoter, and when he asked me, I stumbled my words around, and I finally say, you know what, I'm Bandana Joe. And he looks at me, he's like, okay. I think that was one of the best decisions I made, was to use that name, and it's a name that's, with me, to me at least, is synonymous with wrestling here in the Valley.
Last week you had a big match where you faced Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion, VIP Champion, NWA BOW Champion, and Grand Warrior Ray Rowe. Give us your thoughts on the match, you know, how your feelings on it now. You got a week to think about it and look back on it.
A week to recover, too. A week to recover, I'll say that. First of all, I mean, leading up to the match, I didn't know that my name was going to be thrown into a drawing of votes, and I had no idea that I had this to prepare for, but for some reason I knew weeks before that I needed to come back to wrestling, that I needed to start training again, lifting weights, eating better, and all this stuff. And so I started to do that, and thankfully I did. When I found out that I was facing Ray Rowe, I figured, you know what, the people want to see this. I'm going to give it everything I've got. Right then and there, when the match started, I made sure not to be intimidated. I mean, Ray Rowe's a big guy. He's a big guy, especially in independent standards. I mean, there's not many guys who can toss me around the way he did. I weigh 250 pounds, and this guy carried me with one arm, tossed me around. So, I mean, it was a hard-hitting match. Hard-hitting match, fast-paced. At least for me, it was fast-paced. He took me to the limit. He took me to the limit, and you know, if my teeth weren't attached to my gums, they'd be on the floor all over the place, I'll say that. It was just incredible. I mean, to the last moment of the match, I remember thinking to myself, this is it. I've got him beat. That's when I was climbing the top rope. I've got him beat. I pushed him to his limits. This is it. This has got to be it. And the way the people reacted to me going up, it's just like the adrenaline was rushing through my whole body. I figured I'm going for a move that I haven't done in so long, which is the frog splash. A move I haven't done because the last time I did that move was here at Cena El Rey, sometime in March 2013, and I busted my knee. I busted my knee and I was out for almost a year. But I figured I've given this guy everything I've got. This is the only thing in my arsenal that's left to do. I go up to that top rope and I can feel my legs pushing, lifting my 250-pound frame, and by the time I got to the top rope, time stood still and my legs weren't able to move the way I wanted them to. I ended up collapsing. I fell off the top rope. I felt it on my knee, and I thought I was done. I thought I was done. We got back up. I tried, you know, giving him some more. I wanted to capture him on my DVD, Death Valley Driver, but he ended up taking me out. I faced giants. I faced monsters, and for the first time in that ring, I stood toe-to-toe with death. I didn't get the win, but I'm still here.
What's the future look like for Bandana Joe? Where do you go from here?
I mean, whenever you get taken down, the only way you can go is up. I've hit rock bottom before. I've been beaten before. I've been taken out before. The only thing left to do is to pick myself up, continue to work for it, and believe me, I will find my way back into that main event spot, and I will be NWA Grand Warrior someday. I know that for a fact.
Excellent. All right, Bandana Joe, everybody.